المقدم المؤخر الأول الآخر الظاهر الباطن الوالي المتعال المتقدم المؤخر العفو الرؤوف مالك الملك ذو الجلال والإكرام المقسط الجامع الغني المغني المانع الضار النافع النور الهادي البديع الباقي الوارث الرشيد الصبور الذي ليس كمثله شيء وهو السميع البصير اللهم صل أفضل الصلاة على أسعد المخلوقات كسيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم عدد معلوماتك ومداد كلماتك كلما ذكرك ذاكرون وغفل عن ذكره الغافلون.
Allah Allah ya Allah 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 ya Allah 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 ya Allah 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 ya Allah Ar-Rahmanu ya Allah Ar-Rahimu ya Allah Al-Maliku ya Allah Al-Quddusu ya Allah As-Salamu ya Allah Al-Mu'minu ya Allah Al-Muhaiminu ya Allah Al-Azizu ya Allah Al-Jabbaru ya Allah Al-Mutakabbiru ya Allah Al-Khaliqu ya Allah Al-Bari'u ya Allah Al-Musawiru ya Allah Al-Ghafaru ya Allah Al-Qahharu ya Allah Al-Wahhabu ya Allah Ar-Razaqu ya Allah Al-Fatahu ya Allah
اهدنا الصراط المستقيم الصراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم صل على سيدنا محمد وفاتح ما أغلق وخاتم لما سبق نصر حق الحق والهادي إلى صراطك المستقيم وعلى آله ومقداره العظيم رحمة الشيخ. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to another of our Thursday sessions where we're reading and reflecting upon letters of Shaykh Ibrahim Inyas. We're doing this class initiated with Shaykh Mahy Cisse as his great inheritor from Sayyidi Ali Cisse. Radiallahu anhu. Shaykh Mahy has asked me to conduct the class, and so we'll proceed as normal. Also, he sends his greetings and renews your tariqah. Make it a habit to ask him to renew all of our tariqah, inshallah ta'ala. So may we keep it well. So now we're on the 22nd letter of counsel, which is titled On the Necessity of Purifying Oneself from Blameworthy Characteristics. And this letter is very long, this meaning compared to the other letters. So we're going to break it into parts. I think this letter may be maybe 10 pages long. Most of the letters are 1 or 2 pages long. I think maybe we've had one that's maybe 3. So this is a long discourse. We're going to take about the same amount that we usually take in order to not to overburden people. And then we'll return back to this letter next week, either with Shaykh Mahy or we'll continue as normal with our reflections under his expressed permission. Shaykh Ibrahim begins, in the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. May Allah, and this is also, I should mention, this collection of letters that we're taking from, so I translated by our brother Talut. So to proceed, he begins in the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. May Allah bless our Master Muhammad, the opener, the seal. Then he mentions Umar Lu. Make sure this letter reaches our servant, Sidi Ahmed Tiam, that he may convey it to all of our servants by mouth, in writing, or both. And may Allah reward him for us. Peace. After invoking the name of Allah, and may Allah bless our Master Muhammad and his family according to his grandeur and immense worth. All praise is due to Allah, who shined the light of his guidance in the heavens and in the heaven of the hearts of his elect, who purified their hearts through vigilance of him, obedience to him, love and service of him, and upholding his command and prohibitions, who illuminated the earth of their souls through their emulation of the most elect, excuse me, of the most elect of his creation, and are following the footsteps of the mirror of his essence and container of his attributes, and who lured them away from their egos through his being. May the blessing and peace be upon the greatest intermediary, the source of upright gnosis, and may Allah be pleased with our intermediary, the seal at-Tajani, and his true secret. To proceed, this is a letter to all my beloveds and brothers, whatever part of the earth they may be. After asking the peace, blessings, and mercy of Allah upon you, I ask Allah, exalted is He, for you and myself, for felicity in the two abodes, as well as an occupation that brings benefit in the two abodes. Thereafter, I counsel you and myself, O lovers, to adhere to purification with water, the wudu, to the 5 prayers, and all the litanies. He said, exalted is He, now quoting Allah from his book, maintain with care the obligatory prayers, and in particular the middle prayer. It is obligatory to follow the command of Allah, exalted is He, and adhere to the obligatory prayers. And if one has no excuse, it is only possible with purification by water. And it is imperative to adhere to them and preserve in performing them, observing their conditions and proper etiquette. He said, exalted is He, again quoting Allah in his book, and those who carefully maintain their prayer. End quote. It is the first of the Slaves Act that will be examined and best by which one can approach Allah. He said, whoever performs wudu, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he meaning the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, whoever performs wudu for prayer and does so excellently, then walks to the prescribed prayer and prays it with all of the people or in a congregation in the mosque, Allah, blessed and exalted is He, will forgive him his sins. End quote. Whoever perseveres remaining in a state of purity, it will cause him to obtain the correct exemplary purity that will never be invalidated. And among the most important aspects of purity is a purity oneself, to purify oneself of conduct that the sacred law and reality have deemed blameworthy, such as envy, arrogance, dissimulation, and all the other dislike actions of the heart. The erudite scholar, Sidi Abdurrahman al-Akhdari, said in his Mukhtasar, if someone intentionally prays without wudu, he is a disbeliever. Allah be our refuge. And ritual purity is one of its conditions, due to Allah's making it obligatory in his book and on the tongue of his prophet, upon whom be blessings and peace, and by the consensus of the people of the Qibla. Thus, whoever intentionally prays without wudu, he has made the unlawful lawful. And it is known that by consensus, the person who makes the unlawful lawful is a disbeliever. May Allah be our refuge from that. And it is imperative that you carefully observe your prayers in congregation, carefully performing them within their desirable times. It has been related in a hadith, the first part of the time is the pleasure of Allah. Its middle portion is the mercy of Allah, and its end is the pardon of Allah. Pray them in congregation is a sunnah. However, it is one of the conditions of our Tijani Tariqah of the Imam performs the bowing and prostration satisfactorily and observes the sunnah. It is not then, if not, then it is not a condition. and seek support in establishing one's worship through eating only what is lawful. One of the fuqara has said, whatever you intend, then perform actions that correspond to it, and keep the company of whoever you wish, for you belong to his religion. And it has been related in hadith, indeed Allah has an angel over Jerusalem who calls out every night. If someone eats what is unlawful, Allah will accept neither spending nor ransom. It has been said that what is meant by spending is voluntary acts, and what is meant by ransom are the obligatory acts. And he, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, said, the most beloved of all acts to Allah is the prayer at its proper time. In other words, at the beginning of its time. And in the counsel of our master Umar, radiallahu anh, the just, according to me, the most important matters for you is the prayer. And excuse me, pardon me. Whoever guards it, meaning the prayer, whoever guards it and adheres to it will be the more observant in other acts. Whoever neglects it, he will be more negligent in other acts. Shaykh Mahy, ad-Din, may Allah be pleased with him, has said, no act of any slave, be he angel, messenger, prophet, saint, or believer, causes him to reach the stations of nearness except the prayer. And Allah exalted has said, prostrate and draw near to me, in his book. Alhamdulillah, I want to pause here just to emphasize, obviously, the Shaykh is taking his time in extolling the virtues of the Salah, making it or expounding on its importance, not making it important because Allah already made it important, but expounding on the importance for our sakes. And that to stay to it and to perfect it and to preserve it and to guard it as it is something valuable. And, for this is of the first things that we learn, obviously. The first thing after the Shahada, even a person becomes a Muslim, the first thing they're going to learn about this Tawheed, and that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is a prophet and the last prophet. He's going to learn that, and immediately thereafter, he's going to engage the prayer. So the prayer is at the beginning of the affair. And the prayer is at the end of the affair, meaning even for the great masters, as was being mentioned here by the Shaykh, even whether a person is a believer or a Muslim or a prophet or a messenger or an angel or whatever rank that one is engaging, the perfection of their salah is key to their own perfection. And the amount of time, energy, but most is a priority to be placed on the salah. And this sometimes can be overlooked by two groups of people. Either people at the beginning of the affair, they're overlooking it, maybe because they haven't quite grasped the importance of it. Maybe it's very difficult for them. Maybe they're still learning it, or so on and so forth. So they'll find some issues with their salah. And then there are other people, who have traveled some on the path, and some people have misunderstood. Some people think they have outstripped the salah, meaning they've traveled on the path in such a way that they have graduated beyond the salah. I've met people like this. And they're saying, oh, it's Muslim. They say it like you completed first grade, second grade, like, oh, I finished first grade, I finished the salah. Now I'm on to bigger and better things. Now I know Allah in a way that I don't have to pray to him like this. But they think they've graduated beyond it because they've traveled on the path. But no, this person hasn't traveled anywhere. They have not taken one step on the path. If they had taken one step on the path, then they would be maintaining their salah, and that is evidence of even taking one step on the path. And to take two steps on the path is to pray it without it being late, pray it in its prescribed time. take 3 steps on the path is to say that a person prays it right when it comes in, when it is most sweet. That is when the prayer is most right. Not only is the prayer most sweet as far as the barakah that comes with it as being mentioned here by the Shaykh and by the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, not just as it's being mentioned here, but also most people, if you've been Muslim long enough, you can testify to the fact that praying at the very beginning of the prayer, when a prayer first comes in, lends itself to a better prayer, a lighter prayer. But when one neglects the prayer, meaning lets time pass, the prayer becomes heavier and heavier and heavier, more difficult. So then, say a person, it's time for Isha, it's 8 o'clock, or depending on what time of year, let's say in this time of year it's 8 o'clock. So the prayer is in at 8 o'clock, but you don't have to pray Isha immediately. So then they wait, and it's 9 o'clock, then 10 o'clock, then they watch a movie, then they do this, then they do that, then they get tired, they get sleepy. And then the negotiation inside of the nafs happens. Oh, you're so tired. Oh, maybe you should watch one more video and then you pray. This, and then the nafs starts doing its conspiring against you. The nafs and shaitan start to conspire against you to get you out of this prayer that will take 5 minutes. The reward for it is great. The work of it is only 5 minutes, but then it's piled on, and feels like a burden. Of course, the Isha and the Fajr will find these most difficult in that regard. But with 5 minutes, you could achieve something great. And so tending into it. So it's sweetest and lightest at that time, and also the reward is the greatest at that time. Also, what the Shaykh is mentioning is if someone gets vigilant about the prayer, then they're going to naturally become vigilant about other good things. And besides that, I'm just realizing, can you guys hear me okay? And I see, just hold on just for a moment, because there are some people waiting. Brother Sidi Isaac, who facilitates this, he had to go and pray Maghrib, so I became a host. So I just want to make sure I've allowed everyone in. I think I've allowed everyone in. So to say that to be vigilant and to guard the prayer, then the rest of the affairs of a person, those are spiritual affairs, but even those of non-religious affairs. And this I found in my own experience, that when I dedicate myself, not just to pray during the space of time available, but to pray in the earliest part, that sends a vibration throughout my life for my other religious acts, but then my other worldly acts, that I find myself sharper, more accurate, more efficient, more productive. And so these are some of the maybe hidden benefits that come from the barakah of taking the salah at the sweetest part. And purification, of course, it starts off speaking about the purification that's needed. That's number one, obviously, the wudu or the ghusl or whatever is required for that person with water in order to engage in the prayer. If there's no water, then of course a tayammum, which he doesn't mention explicitly, but makes a reference to. But also the purity of the heart. The purity of the limbs is important, and that's in keeping with the Sharia. And then also the reality, the hakika of the wudu, in order to free oneself of sins. One, the washing, as we know from the Messenger of Allah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that when we wash our face, wash our eyes, wash our mouth, wash our hands, the sins are falling from our hands and our mouth and our eyes and our faces and our feet and so on. With each drip of water, the sins are being removed. So that is something of the reality of what is happening, although we're only wiping our outer form, our limbs. But by way of that, Allah Ta'ala is forgiving our sins out of His grace and His mercy and His kindness to us. And also we should incline to cleaning our hearts, which means basically to remove every idol and every filth and purify one's house, the house of the heart, where this is where we are keeping the remembrance of our Lord. So this is our Zawiyah, this is our masjid, this is our Kaaba. So we wouldn't find it fitting to go to the Kaaba and we find it surrounded by garbage, and inside of the Kaaba, all kind of litter, just scattered litter, filth, and candy wrappers and grocery bags. And we would say, what's wrong? Who are the custodians of this holy mosque? Who's left this Kaaba like this? Nor will we go into the Kaaba or around the Kaaba in this day and age and find idols erected, wooden and stone idols erected outside of the Kaaba and inside of the Kaaba. We will say, who's allowed this at this holy site of Allah Ta'ala, this holy site built by Adam alayhi salam, rebuilt by Ishmael and Ibrahim alayhi salam, established as the place of monotheism by Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and all of the honor and the way Allah has distinguished this Kaaba, which is just a Kaaba in this realm, and then there's 7 more Kaabas going up into the throne of Allah Ta'ala. We can say all the things we can say about the Kaaba. So who's gonna let grocery store wrappers and candy wrappers and trash and filth and urine and feces? Who is allowing this? And worse than that is who is allowing idols to be inside the Kaaba and be out and around the Kaaba in the holy precincts? We will find this as a unforgivable offense. Yet the heart of the believing person, your heart, is worth more than a Kaaba. 100,000 Kaabas could not, in the scale, weigh as heavy as the human heart. The believing heart is worth many times more than the holy Kaaba, as holy and as great as the Kaaba is. And this isn't any exaggeration. So then how is it fitting we have filth in our heart? How is it fitting we've erected idols in our heart and haven't struck them down? This is what the La ilaha illallah is. This is what the wudu is. This is what the standing for salah. But if we can, before the salah, to engage in the highest level of purity, maybe we can't clean our heart till it's pure. This is what we're trying to do, little by little, step by step. Saying La ilaha illallah until it's true in our hearts, until there's nothing in our hearts except for Allah. That we have to liberate ourselves from our associating any partners with Allah, any equal to Allah, any rival to Allah, and especially that of our own voice, that of our own selves. And so we have to free ourselves from that, but obviously it's easier said than done. But in establishing the wudu and perfecting the wudu, establishing the salah and perfecting the salah, this is how we train our hearts to step by step to arrive at this place, such that as Shaykh Mahy was mentioning when he was talking about the purity of the heart, then the heart is Jannah. So you can have Jannah here in the world. Once the heart is freed of everything other than Allah, then the heart is a garden of Jannah. And then, so there are some people that live in this world with a heart that's already Jannah, so they're already in Jannah, although they have not physically died. And we have our hearts are holy and all together for Allah without any exception. And just as for us to be as offended or as that we would find it as important to clean around the Kaaba and inside the Kaaba. And the reason I mention things like candy wrappers, grocery store wrappers, is, you stand in the salat or before the salat or just in your day and find just silly things popping up in your heart. You'd be in the salat and then thinking, oh, what am I gonna have for dinner? Or, you're in salat and thinking about, oh, remember that one time in 5th grade that so-and-so said something. Just nonsense. Stuff that's not even seductive. It's just stuff. And so, the sons of Adam, the daughters of Adam, we have this experience and we don't get too down on ourselves for it, such that it further distracts us from the salah. So sometimes a person, maybe who's younger in faith, has this disruption And then they get so down on themselves for having this disruption and their hearts aren't pure, that, oh man, I'm not really pure enough to pray because when I pray, I think about other things. And that further distracts them from the path of Allah Ta'ala and distracts them from the obedience to Allah. So we don't get so down on ourselves that, oh, the Kaaba is filthy, throw the Kaaba out. We're not gonna say that. We just clean the Kaaba. We just clean the Kaaba. And the heart, your heart is more valuable. Our hearts are more valuable than 100,000 Kaabas stacked on top of each other. The heart of just one of the common Muslim people. We're not even talking about the big awliya, the anbiya, the mursaleen. We're not talking about the aktab and all of these the hierarchy of realities of the ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The regular Muslim doesn't do anything except for pray and fast and during Ramadan, and it's just regular Muslim. He obeys Allah, he commits sins. He obeys Allah, he commits sin. He repents, he obeys Allah. That heart, 100,000 Kaabas can't weigh what that heart weighs of the common Muslim. So we wouldn't throw it out. We just have to keep tending to it. And so if we keep tending to it, then we hope that we will arrive at a place where the heart is made good and the heart is made pure. And also, and we'll finish with this, as we don't like to go much over a half an hour, one of the reminders from Shaykh Ibrahim in Yas radiallahu anhu, when someone was asking about the disruption that he has in prayer, that his heart is disrupted, thinking about this and that, and so on and so forth. And he said, alhamdulillah, this is a sign of Iman. And the man is surprised. I'm talking about being distracted and thinking about things other than Allah and Salah. How could that possibly be a sign of Iman? He said, this is a sign of Iman because a burglar doesn't burglarize an empty house. Meaning the shaitan is not going to bother you. It's not going to tempt you. It's not going to seek to disrupt you, except if you have Iman in your heart. If you don't have Iman, then he'll leave you to yourself. Job done, finished. There's no more work to be done here. His work there is finished, and he'll move on to whoever else he finds with some Iman. So if you're standing in Salat and you're finding this disruption, then alhamdulillah, glad tidings to you. That means there's Iman in your heart. It is as if buzzing flies come around to one of the signs where they say about something that's good to eat or not good to eat, meaning food that is genetically modified to the point that it's not even food anymore, that they say if you leave it out and the insects eat it, then alhamdulillah, it's organic. It's got some benefit. If even the insects and the flies won't eat it, then this has lost the level of it even being food. So, mashallah, or even when you're picking a watermelon, and you have the watermelon, and one of the things you look for are these kind of scars that may appear on the watermelon. That's how you know how to pick a sweet watermelon from one that's not quite ripe. And what those marks indicate are that insects have tried to get into the watermelon. So then if you know that, then you say, oh, they're trying to get into this watermelon, and this is the watermelon I want because this watermelon has sweetness and it's ripe. So likewise, the heart, when it's ripe, you're going to find the shaitan seeking entry into it. You're going to see the shaitan taking interest in that heart, and this is a sign that there's something sweetness in it. What is the sweetness? The sweetness is Iman. And so we, as to summarize, that we engage our salah, take it very seriously, raise it up as of the greatest importance of the things that we're doing in the day, and making sure to make time for it. And ideally at the beginning of its time, that we take advantage of those sweetest moments, which is at the beginning of the time of the prayer, and we are vigilant in it, meaning in establishing the prayer and what is preceded to meet the conditions of the prayer, and also while we're in the prayer to have our qibla, to have our direction be for Allah and Allah alone. La ilaha illallah. And so we'll continue, inshallah, with this letter. As I said, this letter is very long. And so we'll take it in pieces, inshallah, and we'll continue either with Shaykh Mahy or Shaykh Mahy will have me proceed with the classes as normal. La ilaha illa anta subhanaka inni kuntu min adh-dhalimin wa astaghfirullah rabbi wa atubu ilayh. Allah, Rabbana atina fid dunya hasanatan wa fil akhirati hasanatan wa qina adhaban nar. Astaghfirullah rabbi wa atubu ilayh. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad الفاتح لما أغلق وخاتم لما سبق، ناصر حق الحق الهادي إلى صراطك المستقيم وعلى آله حق قدره ومقداره العظيم. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون، السلام على المرسلين، الحمد لله رب العالمين. اللهم آمين. Please forgive me for any of my errors. Allah bless you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
نسألك يا من هو الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الرحمن الرحيم الملك القدوس السلام المؤمن المهيمن العزيز الجبار المتكبر الخالق البارئ المصور الغفار القهار الوهاب الرزاق الفتاح